This is Brad Rudin, Director of Agronomy Tech Services with South Dakota Wheat Growers, out in the field today with a Tech Tips update. We're standing in front of our seed treatment plot at our Bath agronomy location, and for all intents and purposes, as we scan across the plot, we can think that this is an excellent looking stand of Asgrow 1435 soybeans. And for most part, that is absolutely true. The treatments, like the treatment in front of us, which is our premier seed treatment package from South Dakota Wheat Growers, look absolutely excellent. However, there are some management things that we do need to take a look at in soybeans for the last 50 or 60 days of the growing season, and we want to focus on those here for the remainder of this talk. We've now moved down the plot a little ways to our untreated plot, and there are several things in this plot that we do want to take note of. At this time of the season, it's very tempting to take a look at a soybean crop and consider that maybe it's run its course and we should stop putting any more inputs into that soybean crop and let the season take its course and run on and think about our crop for this next growing season. However, there's a lot of yield potential that is still on the table. Soybeans are just in their heyday, if you will, right now of filling pods. So our yield is just getting made between now and the end of the season. And careful management between now and the end of the season is absolutely critical for maximized yield. If we look down further into this canopy, we'll find some things that we can see that we may need to manage. Looking at this leaf here, you can see some significant insect damage here near the end of the plot. Insects like grasshoppers or bean leaf beetles, soybean aphids, and if we continue hot and dry, maybe even spider mites might be something that we'll have to manage here for the remainder of this season. Be sure that if we do find insect infestations out in our fields or mite infestations in our fields, that we're working with our local agronomists to be picking the correct products to be able to take care of that pest population and not leave any yield remaining on the table. Also, you'll notice in several fields right now, we'll start seeing some diseases like this plant at the end of our untreated plot. This plant, if we look very carefully at it and we'll zoom in at the base of the plant, we can see a very clear brown line that's coming up from the soil and stops right here on the plant. This is an indication that this plant has died from a late season infection of Phytophthora. Now, this is in our untreated plot, and this is the kind of disease that we would expect in this particular plot. This can be easily managed by using a premium seed treatment package like Cruiser Max Vibrance that we offer through South Dakota Wheat Growers. Also, some other diseases do appear at this time of the year, and if you find some soybeans that are up near the top of the canopy showing some necrotic tissue or dead tissue between the leaf veins, you may have heard of a disease called sudden death syndrome. Across most of our South Dakota Wheat Growers territory, however, sudden death syndrome isn't the major cause of that type of damage to soybeans, but we do get a disease called brown stem rot. Brown stem rot can infect the lower part of the plant, send a toxin that goes to the top of the plant and causes that interveinal necrosis or death of tissue, and can cause those plants to suddenly die at this time of the year. We usually only see this in some occasional plants, and it's usually around some of the lower areas of the field. But if you do find that out there, one of the keys is to pick some of those plants and make sure you get an accurate diagnosis, either through a qualified plant diagnostic lab or certainly by visiting first with your local agronomist. I do have a board here that's called a Ryker Mount of what we're looking for if we do split some of those stems with a disease called brown stem rot. If we look up carefully at these soybeans that are up in this particular area and we zoom in on the soybeans near the right hand side, we will see a key diagnostic for brown stem rot. If we split those stems open, brown stem rot will of course have turned the pith of the plant brown, and it will also have broken that pith apart into what we call a laddered pith. If we find that, that's brown stem rot and a key diagnostic for that. If we don't find that and we do have white pith in the plants and we still have that interveinal necrosis near the top of the plant, then we have to consider that we might be dealing with sudden death syndrome, and we may have to consider what kind of management tactics we're going to use for that throughout the rest of the season and going into next year. There are a lot of good soybean fields out there. There's some excellent yield potential still on the table, and we need to be able to be sure we're following up on a management for our last 40 to 60 days of the season if we want to gain maximum yield from our soybean fields. If you're interested in finding out more about soybean management or soybean variety selection for the 2017 season, be sure to visit with your local wheat growers agronomist at any of our wheat growers agronomy locations across central and eastern South Dakota and southern North Dakota. For now, be safe and have a productive growing season.